My name is Bev, and I've written a book. It's not going to be out until the end of 2020, so I'm just sharing with you some of the information from the book. And in today's video, I want to discuss some misconceptions about carbohydrates, and I want to come at that from the biochemical side of your body. Now, if you like the videos, please subscribe. You'll learn more. Okay, so food is normally categorized as carbohydrate, fat, or protein, but food isn't really that simple. Let's take beef, for example. Beef has fats and protein, but we categorize it as a protein because the highest percentage of that beef is indeed protein. So the same story for eggs. Eggs have fat and protein, but mostly protein. Peanut butter has fat and protein, but mostly fat. So before we go on to carbohydrates, let's just do a quick and dirty on fats and proteins. So fats can be unsaturated or saturated. And saturated is not as good for your body as unsaturated. So unsaturated tend to be liquid at room temperature. So for example, oils, but also we have fish and nuts and seeds. Now, fish, I've got it in unsaturated fats, but obviously you're going to want to eat fish. They're very good fats as well. Okay. If we look at saturated fats, they have a lot more fatty acids, and they tend to be solid at room temperature. So dairy products are a good example. So cheese, yogurt, and butter. Now, some oils are indeed saturated, even though they're liquid. Coconut and palm oil are examples, and you see a lot of palm oil in processed food. Okay, now when we go to proteins, they can be lean or fatty. So lean is white meats, white poultry, and pork. People tend to think pork is fat, but a pork loin, tenderloin, is a great white meat, and it's lean. So fatty meats tend to be dark, and eggs are there as well. Now I eat 2 eggs every day, 7 days a week, and I love them. They're very good for me. They have a bit of cholesterol, but cholesterol is mostly, if you have a cholesterol problem, it is caused actually by your body, not by the eggs that you eat. But I wouldn't suggest more than 3 eggs a day. So you've got some choices in here. And normally I would say maybe about 30% of your daily caloric intake fats, and maybe about 30% protein. 40% carbohydrate. Now you can alter those a little bit depending on what your goals are, but you do it always very gradually. Fats pack a lot of energy. People don't like to eat fat because they see that 9 calories per gram, but fats are very good for you. They have many, many different jobs. Proteins and carbs run in at 4 calories per gram. Okay, so let's go now to carbohydrates. Now, people make some very poor decisions when it comes to carbohydrates. And one example of such a decision is the choice to not eat any carbohydrates. Now, when you don't eat any carbohydrates, your body doesn't get any glucose, and it goes into a bit of a panic mode. And what does it do? It begins to eat your muscle, and of course it eats your fat. Now, before Banting and Best came along and created insulin, undiagnosed type 1 diabetics couldn't process any glucose whatsoever. So their bodies began to eat their muscle and eat their fat, and continued. And they got skinnier and skinnier, and eventually they died. I'm sorry to be negative, but I'm just pointing out the fact that you need to eat carbohydrates. Okay, now carbohydrates, what are they? They are, all carbohydrates are converted into glucose by your body for energy, and all carbs are built with sugar molecules. And so the question is, how are those molecules put together? And they're different on these 2 lines. So on the green line, which is a better line to travel along for carbohydrates, they are called polysaccharides. Saccharides are sugars. Poly means many. And indeed, what this means is that these sugars are joined together in long chains, and we call them complex chains. So long, complex chains of sugars. And for your body, it's very difficult to break up those sugars. Your body has to use a lot more energy to break them up and send them into the bloodstream. And so what that does is allows the glucose to be very gradually introduced into your blood. So you don't get this whack of insulin running around and then you've got too much and you make body fat. So another way to look at this is we call them slow to sugar. So it takes a longer time for the glucose to get to your blood. Now on this line, we also have saccharides, and they're much more simple in their, maybe I'll use the word geometry, but in their chemical structure. And they are mono or disaccharides. So mono is 1 and di is 2. So they are made up of 1 sugar or 2 sugars. So 2 monos stuck together is 2 sugars. When you get higher than 2, you get into polysaccharides. And carbohydrates are kind of combinations of these 3, but we're talking about ones that are mostly poly or mostly mono or mostly di. So these, because they're so simple and the body doesn't have to expend much energy to break them down, these are very fast to sugar. So if you're trying to keep your blood sugar down so you don't have a whack of insulin whipping around, then you don't want to eat a lot of these, because they're just going to make sugar fast, you can't deal with it, and you're going to make more body fat. And if I give you examples of these, fructose, well, obviously glucose, galactose, and you'll see that any sugar ends in OSE. So whenever you see that on anything you're buying, you're going to know it's a sugar. What's another one? Maltose. And over here, sucrose and lactose. And I said they were made of 2. So sucrose has fructose and glucose, and lactose has glucose and galactose. So you'll see these are 2. All right. Let's think of some examples along these lines. So up here, we have vegetables. We have, and I'm going to put potatoes because I want to mention that the best choice here are sweet potatoes. Rice, and I'll tell you right off, the best one, it's glycemic index. I'm talking here and I'll do that in another video. Basmati, for example, is better than jasmine. Examples are, what's another? Oh, couscous. Let's try oatmeal. Now, oatmeal, you should make your own oatmeal. I don't want you going into the aisles and buying those little packets of oatmeal. They have a teeny bit of refined processed oatmeal, but look out for the sugar in it. So you're going to be moving your oatmeal, if you're buying them in those aisles, you're going to be moving it down here. Okay, so those are some examples. Some examples here, this is where people eat the wrong thing, okay? So fructose, where do you find fructose? Fruits. Where do you find lactose? Milk. And by the way, I may as well put fruit juices in here as well. Other things, pasta, bread, sweets, right? I mean, obviously sweets or sweet teas, pasta, let's see, milk, any kind of processed foods, obviously. Let's see, sweets, breads, pasta, milk, pop, any kind of soda pop. And I want to mention something about soda pop. It doesn't matter whether you're drinking soda pop with sugar or whether you're drinking soda pop with artificial sweetener. As soon as you drink soda pop, your mouth, your body, it tastes something sweet and it thinks, oh, there's glucose coming. So it just gets going on its insulin ready, but no glucose arrives. So it's got a ton of insulin. What's it going to do? Yeah, more body fat. So don't drink any soda pop. I don't care whether it's sugar or not. And I should say something about pasta. Pasta is really fast sugar. And so marathon runners, they eat a huge bowl of it before they go on a marathon run because you can get a lot of energy from this, fast energy, but it seems to stay in your bloodstream for, 2, 3, almost 4 hours. So frankly, I never eat pasta. Bread. 99% of the bread that you buy is heavily refined and processed. So very quick to sugar. Because grain, usually, when it's refined, when it's not refined, when it's pure, you get the endosperm, the bran, the grain is whole. It's a whole grain. Not in processed bread, in the bread aisles. Fruits and fruit juices. First of all, fruit juice has absolutely no fiber. There's nothing in it. It's actually liquid calories. You may as well be eating candy. So don't drink any fruit juice. And fruits, I'm not saying not to have any fruits, but maybe one fruit a day. Fruit has antioxidants, it has vitamins, it has a bit of fiber, but one fruit, and remember, a handful. So 1 apple, 1 orange, a handful of berries, a small banana, that's all. That's enough. I see women eating huge bowls of fresh fruit and drinking a bunch of orange juice in the morning for breakfast thinking they're helping their body. No, they're adding a ton of sugar very quickly to their bloodstream, making a lot of fat. So I would say be careful on your fruits. I think I've covered it there. Milk has lactose, so it's a disaccharide. So a lot of people drink a lot of milk. You really don't need to drink a lot of milk. All I do is put some in my coffee. That's about it. If you go to a restaurant, the bowls of pasta in a restaurant, huge, and you can eat the whole thing. Why? There's no message that you're full, no leptin hormone to tell you to quit eating. If you had the same quantity of beef, you could never eat that because beef, like fat, is going to give you the full signal message from your hormones. And most heavy and certainly most obese people don't eat just 40% daily calories from carbohydrates. They're upwards of 70%. Why? Because they're eating in this area here. And you can eat a lot of this with no signal that you're full. So a lot of processed food. You should be shopping the outside aisles, right? With the meats and the dairy and the fresh fruits and vegetables. I would say, why I really don't understand why national food guides lump vegetables and fruits together, because your body certainly doesn't treat them the same. And before we go on, I do want to mention booze, right? And it's not really that booze is a fourth calorie. I mean, think about it. Wine and beer, for example, or hard stuff. They're not protein, they're not fat. They have to be carbohydrate, right? But the problem with booze is your body, it doesn't react the same in your body as do other carbohydrates. Firstly, your liver has to quit doing any other jobs, important jobs, and it has to process the booze. It doesn't do the same thing in terms of saccharides. It produces a whack of fatty acids instead. So the other thing is it's 7 calories per gram, which is pretty high. I mean, you're getting up to, fat is 9, right? So booze is not 4, it's 7 calories per gram. So, and the empty calories, completely non-nutritive calories. So if you happen to be counting calories, you better count booze as 7 calories per gram, and it's going to add up really fast. I think I've pretty well covered it all. I would say, again, 35, 40% in carbs on a plate, and that's it. And try to keep it up here in the poly area. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I certainly hope to see you in the next video. I'm not sure what I'm going to do it on, but we'll see. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.